The soft clinking of cups and the gentle hum of conversation filled the small cafe as the warm aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering soup wrapped itself around the room like a blanket. Ethan Ross moved behind the counter with ease, his apron dusted with flour, his dark hair falling slightly over his forehead as he wiped his hands clean. This cafe was his haven, his second chance at life, and the place where he could still practice his passion for cooking while raising his daughter. Life had not been kind to him. He had once worked in the finest kitchens, trained by some of the most celebrated chefs in the city, but when his wife passed away unexpectedly after giving birth to their daughter, Lily, everything changed. He gave up the glamour of fine dining, choosing instead the quiet corner cafe where he could balance fatherhood and food, the two things that still gave him purpose. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where people trickled in just to escape the drizzle outside, shaking off umbrellas and brushing damp coats as they ordered steaming cups of coffee. Ethan enjoyed these days. They reminded him of comfort, of warmth, of the simple things people sought when life felt heavy. He was just setting a tray of pastries onto the display when a sudden sound pierced the air, a sharp, desperate cry that turned every head in the room. Ethan froze for a moment, then looked up. Near the doorway stood a woman in a sleek, tailored suit, her heels clicking against the wooden floor as she tried to rock the baby in her arms. The infant's cries were relentless, echoing in the cafe with such force that several customers frowned or whispered. The woman looked exhausted, her polished image faltering beneath the weight of panic and sleepless nights. Her eyes darted helplessly around the room, searching for a way to calm her child, but nothing she tried worked. She offered a bottle, whispered soothing words, swayed gently, yet the baby's cries only grew louder. Ethan felt something stir deep inside him, a recognition he knew too well. He remembered those nights with Lily, when nothing seemed to stop her tears, when exhaustion made him want to collapse but love forced him to keep trying. Without a second thought, he stepped out from behind the counter and approached her. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice that could settle chaos. "May I?" he asked softly, holding out his arms. The woman hesitated, her eyes narrowing for a moment as if to weigh whether she could trust a stranger. But something in Ethan's gaze, gentle, certain, fatherly, made her nod. She carefully placed the baby in his arms. Instantly, Ethan cradled the child with practiced ease, rocking her gently while humming under his breath. The cries softened, then slowed, though not completely gone. Ethan smiled, his heart aching at the familiarity of it. "She's hungry," he murmured, looking at the woman. "Not just for milk. Sometimes, babies need comfort through food they can smell, food that feels safe." He carried the child back toward the counter, speaking softly as he worked. With quick, practiced hands, he prepared a small bowl of mashed vegetables, seasoned lightly with herbs. When he returned and offered the spoon to the baby, the crying stopped almost instantly. The room hushed as the child ate with eager little sounds, her tiny fists unclenching. The woman pressed her hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Around them, the cafe seemed to breathe again, the warmth returning. Ethan looked at her and offered a small smile. "See? Sometimes, the simplest things make the biggest difference." For reasons she couldn't explain, the sight of her baby soothed by this humble chef's food touched her deeper than anything had in years. The woman sat at a corner table of the cafe, her baby finally calm in Ethan's arms. She looked utterly different from the image she had projected when she first walked in. Her hair, once perfectly pinned, had loosened around her face, her expensive suit was slightly wrinkled, her eyes, though sharp and intelligent, carried the weight of exhaustion. Ethan set the baby back in her arms with a reassuring smile. "She's a strong little one," he said quietly. "What's her name?" The woman hesitated before answering. "Emily," she whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I'm Isabella Carter." She said it simply, without the pride or recognition Ethan often saw in people who carried big names. But he recognized it instantly. Carter Enterprises was one of the largest corporations in the city, and its CEO, Isabella Carter, was frequently in the news. Ethan studied her carefully, noting the weariness in her posture, the kind that no wealth or power could hide. They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the cafe filling the gap between them. Finally, Isabella spoke again, her voice trembling with honesty. "I've tried everything, every nanny, every bottle, every method I could find. Nothing works. Not for long." She looked down at Emily, who was now dozing peacefully, her tiny hand clutching her mother's blouse. "I can run a company with thousands of employees, but I can't get my daughter to stop crying. Do you have any idea how humiliating that feels?" Ethan leaned back, resting his flour-dusted hands on the table. "It doesn't mean you're failing," he said gently. "Babies don't care about success or money. They just need to feel safe, and sometimes the way we show safety is through food. Comfort food. It's why I opened this cafe. To give people more than just something to eat, to remind them of something they've lost or forgotten." Isabella blinked at him, surprised by the simplicity of his words. She had grown so used to people complicating everything around her, lawyers with their contracts, board members with their strategies, nannies with their endless lists of rules. But this man, with his humble cafe and tired eyes, spoke as if the solution to her sleepless nights wasn't in money or method, but in love. For the first time in a long while, Isabella laughed softly. "You make it sound so easy," she said, though her smile faltered as quickly as it came. "But my life isn't simple. I'm raising her alone. Her father, he left before she was even born." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she quickly looked away, embarrassed to reveal such vulnerability to a stranger. Ethan's expression softened. He didn't press, didn't pry. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Then you're stronger than you think. And you're not alone anymore, not here, at least." Something in his words lingered with her, a promise she hadn't expected to find in a small corner cafe. As she prepared to leave, she turned to him once more. "Would you consider helping me? Just for Emily. She seems to need something I can't give her." Ethan paused, torn between the quiet life he had built and the sudden pull of this woman and her child. But when he looked down at Emily, her tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful sleep, his heart made the choice before his mind could. "For her," he said softly, "yes." The days that followed unfolded like something neither Isabella nor Ethan had expected. What began as a desperate plea for help soon became a quiet routine. Every morning, when the city's wealthy elite filled boardrooms and luxury cars, Isabella found herself driving to Ethan's modest cafe with Emily bundled in her arms. At first, she told herself it was only for Emily's sake, that the little girl ate better, slept better, and smiled more after tasting Ethan's food. But the truth was, Isabella herself had begun to crave the calm of the cafe, the scent of warm bread, the gentle hum of life, and the man who always seemed to carry an unshakable strength despite his own scars. Ethan welcomed them with the same humility each time. He never treated Isabella like the CEO the world saw, never flinched at her expensive clothes or her polished image. To him, she was simply a mother trying her best. That simplicity disarmed her. She found herself sitting at the corner table longer each visit, sipping coffee while Ethan cooked, sometimes talking, sometimes just listening to the rhythm of the cafe. Emily giggled often now, reaching for Ethan whenever he passed by, her tiny fists tugging at his apron strings like she had already claimed him as her own. One evening, when the cafe had emptied and the rain tapped gently against the windows, Ethan brought out a dish of slow-cooked chicken stew. The aroma filled the room, rich with herbs and garlic, the kind of scent that pulled at the heart before it touched the tongue. Isabella took the first spoonful absent-mindedly, and in an instant, her breath caught. Her eyes blurred with sudden tears. This tastes exactly like my grandmother's," she whispered, her voice trembling. "She used to make this for me when I was little. Whenever I was scared, or lonely." She pressed a hand to her mouth, as though afraid the memories might spill out all at once. Ethan watched her quietly, his heart heavy with understanding. "Food carries people with it," he said gently. "It holds their love, their comfort, their presence, even after they're gone. Sometimes it's the only thing that reminds us we were cared for. Isabella let the tears fall then, not caring about appearances, not caring that her makeup smudged. She had spent years burying her emotions beneath responsibilities, wealth, and an image of control. But here, with Ethan's food warming her soul, she felt like a child again, safe, comforted, seen. When she finally looked at him, her walls had cracked just enough to let the truth slip out. "I didn't realize how much I missed being cared for," she admitted softly. "And how much Emily needs it too." Ethan reached across the table, his flour-dusted hand brushing hers in reassurance. "You're not failing her, Isabella. You're finding your way, just like I had to with Lily. And sometimes, finding help isn't weakness, it's strength." In that dimly lit café, with Emily asleep in her stroller and the scent of stew lingering between them, something unspoken grew. It wasn't just about food anymore, it was about healing, about two broken people realizing that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to be broken forever. The invitation came unexpectedly. One evening, after finishing her coffee at the café, Isabella looked at Ethan with a nervous smile and said, "Would you and Lily come to my home for dinner tomorrow? I'd like Emily to feel that warmth outside of here too." Ethan hesitated, unsure if he belonged in the world of marble floors and polished silverware, but one look at Lily's eager eyes and Emily's outstretched hands made him nod. The next night, Ethan stood at the gates of Isabella's sprawling estate, holding Lily's hand. The sheer size of the house felt overwhelming, but Isabella met them at the door with a softness that erased the grandeur around her. She wasn't the CEO tonight, she was simply a woman, relieved to see the man who had brought peace to her daughter's life. Lily ran ahead, and Emily squealed from her playpen, reaching for her little friend. Their laughter filled the cavernous halls, making the house feel alive for the first time in years. Isabella led Ethan into her kitchen, vast, gleaming, untouched by true cooking. "I've had chefs come and go," she admitted, her heels clicking softly on the tiles. "But this place never felt like home. It feels empty." She hesitated before adding, "Would you cook here, Ethan? Just once?" He smiled, rolling up his sleeves. "Only if you don't mind a little mess." As he worked, the air filled with the aroma of garlic and herbs, the sound of chopping vegetables, the gentle bubbling of broth. Isabella stood by the doorway, watching him. His movements were steady, almost graceful, every action carrying intention and love. She realized then that it wasn't just his food that brought comfort, it was the way he poured himself into it, the way he believed that a meal could carry healing. When the stew was ready, they sat together at the long dining table, though they chose the seats closest to the children instead of the far, formal ends. Isabella took her first bite and felt tears gather instantly. "It's warm," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Not just the food, but this moment. I haven't felt this in years." Ethan reached across, his eyes steady on hers. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Emily deserves more than loneliness. And so do you." For a long moment, Isabella couldn't speak. She simply let the tears fall, not from sadness but from relief. No one had ever told her she deserved more, only that she had to give more, achieve more, prove more. Yet here was a man with flowers still dusted on his shirt, telling her she was enough. The children's laughter echoed through the room as Emily leaned against Lily, her tiny eyes closing in contentment. Isabella looked at Ethan, her heart finally unguarded. "Your recipe didn't just feed her," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It saved me too." Ethan's hand found hers across the table, steady and sure. In the glow of the kitchen lights, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and love served in bowls of simple stew, they both realized something profound. Sometimes, family isn't chosen by blood or built by wealth, it's created in the quiet moments when two broken hearts decide to heal together.